All right, let's do this one last time. This podcast is private screening. It was bitten by two radioactive spiders named Sam and Grant, and for the past almost year, we've been the one and only private screening. Pretty sure you all know the rest. And then I forget what else they say in the rest of that opening monologue, but
well, something like
it's Spider-Man, and that fits in with what we're going for.
Yeah, this is that's relevant to today's
topic,
oh
yeah,
but
you know it.
Yeah,
it's
true. Yeah, but
how you doing?
Good, I'm doing good. But before we get into that, Sam, do you know something very important right now?
Grant, what happened? What did you do?
Literally, at the time of recording, our very first episode has gotten 100 views.
Whoa!
Which is
thank you.
Half of what I thought we were going to get. So
I actually never thought we would get that much.
I know.
It's really cool.
It's very it's much larger than I was expecting us to go. So
Who knows how high we'll go next?
Someone takes one of our clips out of context and posts it on like Instagram, and then we just get so much traction. Well, I mean, once episode 2 comes out, we're going to get a lot of traction because of the topic we talk about there. So,
I mean, we're assuming that like they already know what that is if they've gotten to this episode, right?
Well, they have to, because
Snyder.
Yes, obviously, episode 2 is all about Zack Snyder's Justice League and everything that was happening around that time. But what I find
I hope we never do another Snyder episode. That was a lot.
Well, technically, we did already twice, unfortunately. So, but it is kind of interesting because it's like right now this is episode 6, I believe, and we're still working on.
I think it's episode
2 out.
7. Yeah,
really?
No, the efficiency is not there because we're not professionals, but that's part of the fun, And thankfully, the good news is that with all the stuff that's happening and is soon to happen in the future, we'll have plenty of content to talk about for potentially another year.
Yes, indeed. This is...
technically,
we have an unlimited stream of content, so, I mean... Plus, we have stuff in the past we could always look back on if you run out of stuff to talk about. So, theoretically, we probably won't run out of content before...
Yeah, like, again, with the Snyder episode, we talk about, DC movies from the past, so...
That's true. And
you could always work back in.
There's future movies that are coming that could be either good or bad. So...
There you go.
Yeah.
Shall we?
I guess we do, so...
So, okay, well, our first topic is not movie or show related, it's video game.
Yes.
Because, Grant, you can probably explain this better than me because it was your idea, but you were on a quest, an odyssey, so to speak, to play all of the Game of the Year nominees. Is that correct?
Just kind of cliff note this?
Yeah.
Okay, fine. This is my moment. So every year there's the Game Awards, and basically it's like the Oscars, but for the gamers. That's where they
Wait, this is a thing?
Yes, it's a thing. We sat down and we watched it. This is the second year we've done it. So
No, you're having
No. But usually what I like to do is every year that they have Game of the Year nominees, I always try to play each nominee and see how justified they were, and then see, do I think the winner of that year deserved to win compared to its contemporaries?
And more often than not, the answer is no.
I mean, for 2020, obviously, it was the right answer. So they were
that's your opinion.
They were so correct in giving The Last of Us 2 literally everything a game could win.
And if you disagree, you just don't understand The Last of Us 2. That's all there is to it.
If you don't like it, you don't understand it, obviously. So.
Obviously.
But recapping what has happened for 2021, the winner was a game called It Takes Two, which was a game developed by Hazelight Studios. I believe that's an indie studio, but they are published by EA under the title EA Originals, which I find to be an oxymoron, but that's not important. So...
it takes literally who?
That is correct. But with this game, I had not really heard anything about it up until the Game Awards, because usually what I always see is every year there's always like the indie darling that kind of gets public spotlight, but it always goes to a AAA studio game. But in a shocking twist, It Takes Two actually came out on top of Game of the Year, which kind of piqued me as interesting because looking at how the rest of the award show kind of shook down between who won Best Game Direction, who won like Best Family Game, who won all these other awards. Like seeing all that kind of shake out, I wasn't fully convinced that It Takes Two like fully came through to win Game of the Year, but I was intrigued enough to go out of my way to play it.
Yeah, and you were thinking Deathloop, right?
Well, because the thing is, this is a whole other conversation, but usually when it comes to the Game Awards, it's kind of like looking at the perspective of what does the game journalist say, and when I look at it through that perspective, Deathloop was like very clearly like a huge front runner. They're like, I've never played a game like Deathloop. Oh, this is so unique and so interesting. Like, this is going to be like the game of the generation, blah, 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 blah. So I was thinking, okay, obviously Deathloop's going to come out on top, but then people watching the show are going to be frustrated because they were like, oh, it should have been this, it should have been this. So, but seeing that It Takes Two kind of came around and won the game, I actually wanted to go out and play it because, honestly, I will come out and say it. If It Takes Two did not win Game of the Year, I wouldn't have bothered with it, to be perfectly honest. But it did, and so I'm like, all right, well, because I mean, when we get into the game, like, the thing is, it's a mandatory 2-player game, and so that might be a little bit of a hassle for some people, and so we had to, like, schedule everything, and that was kind of part of the experience, I guess you could say. But we played it. That's your part to jump in.
Yep. You know.
We did
It Takes Two. I liked it.
Yeah, I mean, I liked it too. I mean, I guess going, now that this is the review portion of this game that we are talking about, my opening statement is as follows. Despite having very good gameplay, it does not have a good story, and I'm not fully convinced it's Game of the Year. But that's just my opinion, and you can scrutinize me for saying such things. So
opening statements, I think it was a really excellent tragedy. Culminating with the murder of one politician.
I know where you're going with this, and let's not get there just quite yet.
There's no getting around it, Grant. It's our fault.
No, we're gonna get there eventually. This is called progressions.
Grant,
we need to build up to it. We need to explain it before we get to the climax of the best scene.
We're monsters, Grant. No, it's the worst scene.
No.
Okay.
It was funny.
It was not funny. Man.
It was
in cold blood.
We were doing some trolling.
Oh my gosh. I can't get around this.
Well, Sam, what do you think about the game? Let's get your perspective on this.
So, I had heard of It Takes Two. It's weird. It was not the biggest title that made it into the front runnings of the Game of the Year nominees, but it was inexplicably the one that I knew the most about. And I think the reason for that was because it was in the gameplay style that I most gravitate towards. It was a platformer, it was 3D, puzzle solving, and it had a lot of mechanics.
Except Psychonauts 2, another Game of the Year nominee, is literally that as well.
Okay, well this one just grabbed my attention more because it was
made by EA and they have money.
It resonated with me in a comforting, like, a la Lego game sort of way where, like, you jump around, solve puzzles. Like, that was just something that I was used to.
Yeah, that's fair.
I was excited to play it.
I think that's fair.
I like the first part of the game a lot more before you're, like, gathering ripped shreds of a letter.
Mm-hmm.
Because at that point of the game, it's like everything's new, everything's fresh. You're exploring this one house at a bite-sized level. And I think all the things they end up doing with that were really creative.
Yeah, I would agree there. So
the ending is terrible.
Because, I mean, yeah, we're going to get into that later. So I guess starting on my positive side, I think it's the gameplay that really carries this game.
It is the gameplay.
It's interesting to note because this is Hazelight's second attempt at doing like a mandatory 2-player co-op game. Their first game a few years back was called A Way Out, but that was critically panned, if I remember correctly. Basically, I think the issue with A Way Out was, despite having the same quality of story, did not have like good, well fleshed out 2-player gameplay. Because it's very interesting because I feel like what Hazelight is trying to do is they definitely want to start pushing like co-op style of games into the market with stuff like A Way Out and It Takes Two. It's just that It Takes Two does a much better job at actually finding meaningful ways to utilize co-op gameplay versus A Way Out. Because like in A Way Out, an example could be, okay, I gotta like steal cash from a cash register. So then like one person has to go distract someone while another person actually steals from the cash register, but it's problematic because it's like, oh, I can just look at the other player's screen. On the other hand, It Takes Two has like actual platforming where it's like, okay, I have to stand here and make a platform for you, and then you have to like do some platforming stuff to get over here to pull this lever to get me through.
Yeah.
It has actual like intentional gameplay that like does require, as the name implies, take two.
It Takes Two is actively built around that mechanic, and since it's a lot more, it's a lot more intuitive with like how you're supposed to interact and communicate with each other to solve puzzles and just like even get across the most basic pit. Like everything's a process, but I always thought it was really in a really fun way.
Yeah, definitely. Because I think, again, going with the premise of the everything's like bite-sized because you're like the magical dolls or whatever that premise was, I think it does do a good job kind of, how do you say? I think it does a good job capitalizing on that premise and like actually doing some like fun, unique stuff. Like there's a whole section where it's like, oh, you're in the basement, and then it's like you have to fight your vacuum cleaner who becomes sentient and all that. Because that's kind of the thing with the premise is that that's based on like one of my worst fears of you get really like small and then everything in your house becomes alive. And it's like, I've watched you for 8 years. I've judged you silently in the corner.
That is not the scariest thing about this game, Grant. The scariest thing about this
guess
game
an existential level
is what we do.
It's not scary. I know what you're talking about. There's only one thing you want to say about this game, and we'll get there.
Don't know.
Yes.
Okay. What else?
Well, I mean, I guess to segue to that, should we talk about the story before we get to what you would like to explain to the audience?
The story is that you grind across levels, Tony Hawk style.
Yes.
And what's the story?
Okay, because I was trying to pay attention, even though... yes. So, the plot is basically that a family couple who has a daughter are going to get divorced. But then the daughter is sad when she hears the news, and then she cries onto, like, 2 dolls that, like, represent the parents. Because magic... both parents are turned into like tiny like mannequin versions of themselves, and they can't die because like in the opening cutscene they established that, which makes sense in terms of gameplay. But through the power of a very annoying book, basically,
who is most of the story actually?
Yes, this is most of the story. So basically, you have to find a way to like get back to your normal bodies and all that. And it starts out very easily, I guess spoilers, but basically it's just like, okay, at first we just got to find a way to get back to the daughter's room, and because apparently, like after the opening level, they come to the conclusion that's like, hang on, she cried on the dolls, and that made us mannequins. If we get her to cry on us, then we can go back to normal. That's like the thought process of the characters, but after a certain scene... we come to the conclusion that that doesn't work, and then you do like a quote-unquote impromptu therapy session, because according to the game, the daughter wrote how to turn back to normal on a page of paper.
Yeah, which is the more dragged out.
And then you spin... Yeah, that's definitely... that's kind of a problem I have with the game, but it certainly is kind of padded out longer near that end half. And then it's basically you have to get all four pages of the game, but then... it just ends, which I find kind of frustrating.
Yeah. I don't even think you hit the last piece of the note.
No, because, like, in terms of the ending, it's very frustrating because that end section has, like, no finality to it, in my opinion. It just kind of plays out like another portion of the game, which I think is a little disappointing.
Yeah.
Because I would say, in terms of gameplay, I feel like the one thing that's just a little bit disappointing is that it doesn't do too good of a job reincorporating the ideas that it puts on the table. It does an amazing job at like really exploring a lot of different ideas for different sections. Like there's one part where both of you get like half of a magnet, and so then it's like you have to learn which one will like pull you in and which one pushes you away.
There's one part where it's
that's
like
a
really first-person shooter inside of the tree. There's a part where like you are it's like a D&D video game. You're like one of you was like a magi.
Yeah, that's true.
And
There's
the
like a
other's
dungeon
wizard.
crawler section.
Yeah, that's really dope.
Yeah, there was like one portion where you go to the garden, and then it's like like you had like the power to like water, and then use like a sickle.
I got all the cool stuff.
I had literal Pikmin powers. So.
Exactly.
Like, in terms of, like, actually putting ideas to make an entire level around, I think that is very well done by this game. But the contradiction is that it doesn't really incorporate it.
Yeah.
I guess the basis is the platforming and all that stuff. But on the flip side, it's not like, okay, you have this gimmick, but you don't carry it outside of the designated level.
It's strange, because I think it was a really... Like, I can see that because... On one hand, you're trying to introduce all these different ways to promote teamwork because, it takes two, one could say.
Right.
But, yeah, at the same time, it's so many different types of games at once that, like, by the time you're really enjoying one idea or concept, 9 times out of 10, the game will have dropped it and moved on to the next part, so it doesn't really come back. And there are a lot of points where I was just like, I would have loved to play like just an entire game like this. And it's creative and fun, but there's never really like a set like cornerstone of how to play, I guess, which can be off-putting, but I guess it still kind of works here.
Yeah, because, like, that kind of is why I go back to the whole, like, does it deserve to win Game of the Year? Because it's, like, that's kind of one of the weird things about the 6 nominees this year, is that, from what I've gotten so far, there isn't, like, a standout title. Like, looking back on past years, like, 2017, Breath of the Wild was, like, a shoo-in. 2018, God of War and Red Dead were kind of the two that were duking it out. But, like, this year, there wasn't really a front-runner. Like, Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart and Resident Evil Village both kind of fell by the wayside, in my opinion. I thought Deathloop was going to take it, but then I guess, for whatever reason, It Takes Two seemed to sneak up from behind. Metroid Dread couldn't have won because it's a Nintendo game, and Nintendo is bad, according to the people. So, that's nice. And then, I haven't played Psychonauts 2, but I'm looking forward to it. Maybe it'll turn things around. Mm-hmm. So,
I guess...
Yeah.
Yeah, I maybe it won Game of the Year because, like, maybe even though there was not one big game that earned the title.
They wanted to, like,
encapsulate the title.
They wanted to, like, pick the title that would, like, the happy, feel-good ending. Like,
maybe.
We're cherishing, like, the small creator. Because that's something that definitely interests me about, like, this decision, potentially, is that I've noticed that the director of this game has been, like, pretty affiliated with, like, the Game Awards and, like, E3 and all this stuff. Like, go back and, like, you can easily find, like, a clip of him, like, talking about A Way Out, and he's, like, super excited and he wants to show it with everyone. And then, like, because the claim to fame, like, you'll see anyone online, like, with these news articles talk about, is that he was like, like, in 2017 at the Game Awards, like, he flipped off the camera and said, F the Oscars, or something like that. And now, 4 years later, he's won Game of the Year. Like,
the Oscars.
There's just a part of my brain that's like, yes, ironically. So, there's just kind of a part of my brain that's wondering, do you think that's why he won and not necessarily the merits of the game? Because I don't think the complete package fully justifies the win. Again, the story for me, I don't want to just completely disregard, like, a quarter of your game just so you can have the designated outcome that you want. So
I was going to say maybe it won because, like, even though there wasn't one game out of the nominees that really, like, defined the Game of the Year title, like, Last of Us 2 was just, like, such a little bit of everything that maybe it just, it was so universal to, like, every gameplay style that maybe that helped it a little bit.
Potentially, because it's just weird because I don't really see within the award show itself. I don't feel like it really fully justifies It Takes Two winning the whole thing because outside of the Game of the Year, the only things that It Takes Two won were Best Multiplayer and Best Family Game. Best Multiplayer basically kind of felt like a shoo-in because everything else did not get nominated for anything substantial, and especially for Family Game. Which, I'll just kind of go on a little tangent here. I'm a little frustrated that people think this is such a big surprise that It Takes Two won Best Family Game.
Why did it win Best Family Game? I don't see that.
Well, because that's already another thing, because there's people that are saying it doesn't deserve to win Family Game because it's a T-rated game, it's about divorce. There's a pretty good amount of cursing in this game, I
And we commit murder, don't we, Grant?
That's true. That's true. Only the finest Family Game content in this game. But outside of that, what kind of frustrates me is that people are like, oh, I can't believe Nintendo lost to, like, the underdog indie game. But it's frustrating because you realize the underdog is a literal Game of the Year nominee, and every other game in that category was not nominated for anything else. If anything else won in that category, that would have been very bad on It Takes Two's part. So, quite frankly, I just don't find why this should be such a big surprise. I'm very disappointed with that.
But, like, overall, you liked it?
I mean, yeah, like, overall, I like the game. I do think the story isn't good, and, like, there's no character growth or anything very substantial within the story. I think the book was, quite honestly, one of the most annoying characters I've had to deal with in a video game. Very much. But the flip side was we had the best scene in 2021.
It was the worst scene.
It was the best.
Why did Okay, so there's this part in It Takes Two.
Yeah, you explain.
It happens for no reason. Okay, so
not true.
Grant said it earlier, like, the parents conclude that to get out of, like, the doll bodies that they're trapped in, they have to make their daughter cry. So I think, like, the 5th chapter or area of the game is you making your way through a little makeshift toy castle to assassinate the toy princess, who is named Cutie and is a stuffed elephant that gives hugs and is adorable. And the boss fight for this section is Cutie. And it's not even a boss fight. It's just you, like, like, ripping off this poor elephant's limbs one by one while she pleads for her life. And it's awful. Oh,
but it's very emotionally manipulative, honestly.
And, like, it doesn't accomplish anything either. It's in cold blood. It's messed up. It's out of nowhere. Like, it skeeved me out so bad. I wasn't ready for it.
Yeah, I know. It's very kind of left fieldy with the writing. So, but I mean, I just don't think that there's, like, too much crazy about the scene because it's because the thing is that it's not really, the elephant itself isn't very, like, developed or anything, or there's not really much given to us to really attach ourselves to it.
They don't need to,
so
though.
If anything, it
they
just
don't need to,
like
though. The elephant, like, welcomes you to her kingdom. It's like, have a hug. I love you.
No, but that could easily be turned against you. That's very superficial. Like, what if that was all a ploy to have you killed, Sam? How would you feel about that?
She would never.
It feels very superficial.
No, it's our fault.
I don't trust her.
We're murderers.
Good. But
it was mortifying. I'm scarred.
Well, it's a stuffed elephant.
That was harder than any level in any
makes me a
video
murderer,
game
then
I've ever played.
I mean, I think the worst thing I've seen in 2021's gaming state is everything else.
Oh my goodness. Family Game of the Year.
Deathloop's not good. Very. I'm kind of mad that people are just, like, very turning on Deathloop. It's just kind of upsetting because you could easily critique a bunch of stuff about the game, but there's got to be some good elements in there. I mean, you can't just completely say every single thing about it is the most, like, horrible, grueling experience of your life. Like, I feel like that's what some people make it out to be, and that feels very disingenuous.
Yeah, but, you know, games will be games.
Oh well.
And this one happened to be the one of the year this time, I guess.
Yes, so I guess we will see it next year.
Yeah. So that's that.
I mean, the game's
now
fine,
we gotta go.
but-
Now we have to
well.
actually lean into the meat and potatoes of this whole thing. You ready for some quick COVID stuff, Grant?
Movies. Go for it.
All right, well, Omicron's obviously the thing that everyone's worried about right now, and rightfully so. The United States, Texas especially, if you want to get local, we now have a grand total of 330 million cases worldwide, 5 million deaths, and 268 million recovered, which is good, but again, the surges are really what's...
A lot of numbers.
Yeah, the surges are really where, like, most of the attention is, and we're responsible for most of that, which is unfortunate. You have responses, just like illustrating more struggles between like mandates and businesses. Some businesses, like in Austin, Governor Abbott again issued order banning mask and vaccine mandates, while businesses still require those. So it's just more stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it's strange. Like, looking at that, it's easy to say that things have gotten more dire or more pressing or more serious, but the situation from like an entertainment standpoint is kind of inverted. Like, the developments range from like kind of the same to kind of better, and I think that might just be out of just like a matter of conditioning and exposure, just because this is nothing new for streaming services and theaters. They've had to deal with this for a long time now, so they've kind of been able to roll
they've had
punches.
like experience. So
but you know, as of now, according to the same spreadsheet by what according to the same spreadsheet from NATO that's like documenting all the theater laws, basically all of them are opened again with 100% capacity permitting. The only states that don't have that are Colorado and Nevada. They're the only states with local orders that regulate how theaters can operate. But other than that, like, everything else is pretty much back at full capacity. So, you know, that's a nice full circle. Like, we're back to kind of where we started with theater capacity now, for what that's worth.
Yeah. That'll definitely be interesting to see, like, if numbers start to kind of fluctuate. Once we get, like, more, I guess, blockbuster movies into the circulation.
Yeah, and we'll get to some of those.
So,
for now, just streaming services, I guess. Yeah, streaming services are pretty much the same. We have stuff coming
basically,
up.
well,
we can start with HBO Max if you want to, because Peacemaker.
Yes. The greatest thing that was ever made that all of the sane people hate because
which people,
it has
I wonder?
Jokes
and a personality.
And it has characters, and it's not serious. It's not good.
Oh,
Just,
no. Shut it off.
Cancel it.
Why can't we just let the Peacemaker show up?
No. Just, well, we have the Flash movie to look forward to.
Yeah, but Peacemaker's out. How does did James Gunn write this or direct? I always forget.
I need to look into it, actually, but I do believe he has, like, some hand in the creation of the show. Let me look it up, actually.
Sweet. Because that one, like, actually looks really good. I know it's really iconic now like, for its opening theme or dance or whatever, where Peacemaker is just, like, on a stage fluncing about.
Yeah, it's kind of just, like, a little music video.
Yeah. Yeah. Expectations for that while you look?
The thing is that I'm gonna wait until like February once it all kind of gets like released and everything, but I'm actually kind of looking forward to it. I mean, as I've been told, it is a continuation of The Suicide Squad, which was my favorite comic book movie out of 2021.
Same.
So obviously I would say expectations are high, and fortunately I've actually been hearing generally very positive things from people, so that's good to hear. Let's see. Gunn directed 6 of the episodes, and he wrote 8 of them. And I believe there's 8.
Wow. So. All right. Yeah. Nice voice crack. That's cool. I think that's the big thing coming from HBO Max for now. Like, I don't think I've heard any other announcements, really.
Yeah, at least from our radar. Yeah, basically. I mean, I'm sure there's probably other stuff.
There is. There's something called
out, but,
Moonshot coming out. I think that's a movie.
Oh yeah, isn't that Roland Emmerich movie?
I believe so.
The moon is like. I can't believe he's still making movies. Honestly.
Yeah.
Because I mean, he's only made disaster movies, hasn't he? Like, Independence Day, 2012. Maybe that movie Geostorm. Now this.
Yeah, disaster themed. But I think this is.
I mean, hey.
Yeah.
Props to him. He's got a formula. It's not great, but I mean.
You know. So we'll wait to hear back from HBO Max for more of their stuff. But for now, we're getting the year off to a cool start with Peacemaker.
It's pretty good.
Nothing too major besides that.
Not good. No.
So. And then moving on to Disney Plus, you get a little more traction. What? There's this. Have you seen this trailer for the Ice Age thing?
I don't think I've seen the actual trailer, but I might have seen a commercial for it while I was at a movie theater.
Yeah,
so.
it's how I think this went was that like Disney was developing a show or something with a much lower animation budget than the movies have. So it looks worse than like even the first Ice Age. And it has none of the voice actors except Simon Pegg for Buck. And, Simon Pegg's awesome.
No.
But yeah, I literally think like they took some episodes from the show and like they're just sandwiching them together into a movie to put on Disney Plus, and it's called The Adventures of Buck Wild.
Wait, it's being a movie now?
And that's coming out, and I wish Ice Age would die.
Who doesn't think that? So.
And then they're also making a Rio 3, I think.
Oh, really? Well, yeah, that's true. I mean, because I guess Blue Sky shut down, so someone had to pick up all of their assets.
Dang.
So.
I kind of wish they would just let Blue Sky rest in peace, but that's one thing they're doing.
Yeah.
Doesn't look very good. Turning Red is the next Pixar movie. It's coming out in March. And that was going to have a theater release, but it is now going only to Disney Plus, most likely with the Premier Access thing, so I'm not going to pay for it. And I actually think that this is a good thing for the movie itself, because if we're going off of the other animated projects at Disney Plus that got releases either on a streaming service or a theater, like Raya got more attention once it was on a streaming service. Luca got a lot of attention because it was released on a streaming service. Encanto released in theaters and was kind of lukewarm with how it was received, and then it was released on Disney Plus and got a lot of attention. So if that pattern rings true, then I'm glad something like Turning Red is being put in a position where more people are going to likely appreciate it, since they're going to have a freer space to see it. So that's cool.
That's nice. Unless this is like the point where the pattern is broken and everyone turns on streaming service exclusivity. So, don't do it now.
I guess that's the one where the girl turns into a red panda, which is different from Luca, where they turn into humans, even though they're sea monsters. So there's that. The other...
Well, hang on,
what?
Sam.
This other one's really weird to me, but Lightyear?
Oh yeah,
that's the other Pixar project.
The origin story of Buzz Lightyear.
Well, it's the actual guy that the toy Buzz Lightyear is based off of, I think is how it goes.
Yes. Something like that.
So, I don't know.
I don't know how you make a
I'm
movie
glad it's
that.
not Toy Story 5.
That I do agree with. I do not understand why 4 needed to exist.
It doesn't need to exist.
I really don't.
But, yeah, that's happening. And then right now...
live action Bambi is happening.
Yeah, the biggest things with Disney that remain ambiguous are its next Marvel releases, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness and Thor 4. And I say these are ambiguous because right now it's up in the air. We don't really know if these are going to streaming services or theaters or both. And if you asked me like a couple of weeks ago, I would have said that like it was probably going to be both. It was a no-brainer, but the movie that we're going to talk about, I wonder what it is, broke a lot of records, COVID and otherwise, despite releasing during COVID. So I think it could just go to theaters only and do just fine.
Yeah, that's true. Because, I mean, with how I understand, like, how Disney's handling their Marvel stuff, is that the pattern I'm seeing is all of the TV shows are Disney Plus exclusive, while all the movies are theater and Disney Plus. So, I don't feel like... I think the one thing I'm noticing is that I don't think that they're just going to throw Doctor Strange 2 on just Disney Plus only or something. But, I mean, as you did say, I don't think they would also take it off of Disney Plus either. I don't think there's going to be too much shaking up of the pattern, but I don't know. It still is ambiguous, so we will see.
We will see. I'm glad that Waititi is returning for the next Thor movie. He was great for Ragnarok, and then Sam Raimi's doing Doctor Strange too. So we'll have Raimi fans on the MCU side for once.
And then he will make Evil Dead 4.
Maybe.
Yes.
All right. So that's Disney Plus. What else? Netflix is doing a lot more promo codes. Obviously, while they're busy with Squid Game 2, they're like, releasing more deals. You have the monthly subscription for like $9, 1080p with $14 monthly. And then they also have HD options. So like, they're still doing a lot of stuff with that. And like, these promo codes are becoming more numerous. There's one, again, for $9 where you can stream new and popular Netflix anime, again, for $9 a month. And it's just, B-stars. And it's just stuff like that where this is like another pattern that I'm noticing. So I'm wondering if promo codes like these where it's like, under $10, watch all the anime you want, is something that's going to like become more commonplace within the streaming service game.
Yeah. I definitely think that's something to keep your eye on, I would say, because I noticed that Netflix is raising the price, as you said, like it's going from $9 to $10 and all that stuff.
But they're also doing these promo codes.
It will. Yeah, like, so I guess this might just be their way of like kind of testing the waters with this stuff. So maybe if these promo codes like do well for them, they might want to try to figure out like expanding or finding other ways to kind of like get more people to join the platform. So, because I definitely think, I don't think train wreck right there. But what I think will happen is I feel like streaming services are going to find like the next big thing to kind of like draw more people in or get people's attention. Because take HBO Max, I feel like the whole directly streaming stuff straight to your account at no additional cost was kind of a big next step for a lot of streaming services. So,
yeah. Well, you know what Netflix has that no one else has?
Big Nate.
Squid Game. Which is to say, season 3. Are you hyped?
For season 2?
Indeed.
I mean, yeah. Squid Games. It's no game.
It's no game. This ain't no game anymore.
Isn't. It's not.
But anyway,
it's
besides
personal.
that, some other stuff that's coming to Netflix. Have you seen that trailer for this like series called The House?
I don't think so, actually.
It looks really good, actually. It looks like a Wes Anderson stop motion movie, actually, because it is animated. And it's like an anthology series about like different like stop motion characters. Like there's a cat, a mouse, and then like humans at one point. Staying like in the same house at different points in time and like scary things happening. I would recommend looking it up. It looks pretty cool. Like I want to watch it.
All right.
But there's that. Ozark season 4 or something is also coming soon, so you can look for that. Space Force with Steve Carell is getting a second season. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre is getting rebooted, like it's Halloween or something. We'll see how that goes.
They're going to get John Carpenter.
And then Kevin James is getting his own Netflix movie too. It's like baseball. It's called Home Team. So Get excited.
Huh. I mean, does my voice sound so enthralled?
The wait for Paul Blart 3 continues.
Yes.
Other than that...
What do you think they're going to cash in on that? Like, what do you think they're going to cash in on, like, Paul Blart 3 once all the goodwill's been...
When are they going to give the fans what they want? You know what I'm saying?
I know. I mean, DC is doing that. Clearly.
Exactly.
So...
yeah, the only other streaming service thing that I'm like finding is just Paramount Plus. There was a 60 Minutes Plus with Paramount Plus series. It was like something that streamed on there. And I guess it didn't do very good because after its 30 episode first season, it was canceled. So really? I guess that 60 Minutes thing on Paramount Plus fell through. So there you go.
They got their own Cowboy Bebop live action show.
Yeah. You ever think
Sam,
about
why don't you talk about the other thing Paramount Plus has?
What else does Paramount Plus have? I forgot.
You know, they put the trailer out for the thing that comes out in a month.
What is it?
Sam, don't play games.
What?
Sam, are you really gonna beat around the bush like this? Do I need to spell it out for you?
Maybe you should, Grant. How good are you at spelling?
Big Nate. Okay, there it is. There's the joke. Big Nate. There's the new Big Nate trailer, and I thought you would be interested in this, Sam. So why don't you explain this for the audience?
Okay, so Big Nate is originally a comic character who appeared in many newspapers alongside Garfield and stuff, weekly strips, stuff like that. I grew up with Big Nate in elementary school because after his life in the newspaper, he got a lot of books. Like, it was a book series in the same vein as Diary of a Wimpy Kid. And they were actually really cool because I think there were 8 books total. And if you read them back to back, they're actually like a giant overarching like character arc for Big Nate, or Nate, I guess, as like he learns to be a better person over the course of all those books. So I like that. They're really, really good. I would recommend them. They have a lot of good lines that I forgot about, but I remembered when I went back. And now, Paramount Plus is doing a lot of animated series where they outsource their animation to, like, Quebec, who have, like, never animated a 3D thing in their life. I actually don't know where they're animating it, but it doesn't look very good. They did, like, a Rugrats season in 3D, and that looked really bad. Oh, yeah. And now they're taking Big Nate down with them. So
Big Nathan.
we got a trailer released, and I'm gonna be real, it looks a lot better visually than that Diary of a Wimpy Kid movie that came out on Disney Plus recently, but it still doesn't look very good. Because they like
hot take.
They tried to keep that like 2D kind of sketchy movement that the Peanuts movie had with its 3D models. Like, they kind of move at a lower frame rate, and their animation, like, keyframes are kind of lowered to give the illusion of, like, a drawing. It looks like they're trying to do that, but for some reason, they, like, took all of the character designs from the books and, like, gave them terrifying googly eyes for some reason, which makes them very terrifying. And then, like, I don't know, put them in a bunch of wacky scenarios. So, I'm not even going to say fingers crossed. It doesn't look that good.
Well, I mean, Sam, you're going to get a Paramount Plus account and you're going to watch the show, aren't you?
I don't want to. I don't want to watch the show, Grant.
You have to.
You can't make me,
Sam. It's your job.
No.
You got it.
No, I don't.
The law literally states there's a clause in Section 14, Article B.
What? No.
It's all about
proof?
Proof? Have to watch the show.
Real?
That you talked about. Yes.
Grant, get real, all right? There's no way that clause under
Sam.
that section exists, all right?
I'm as real as It Takes Two is Game of the Year, so deal with it.
Fine. Yeah, there are good instances of, like, people taking children's books or something and making good things out of them. My go-to example has always been Captain Underpants, but like this just ain't one of them. I'm not hyped.
Oh? What if it is? What if it is and you fell for it?
No. He lurks. He's after me, Grant. I can't let him get me. Nate's is going to find me and my family, and I'm terrified.
What if he's already got you?
No, not if I hide, which I'm doing. Nate, if you're watching this video, I live in Lamelda Height. And not here.
Well, I guess you threw him off the trail.
I think it worked. I think I'm safe.
Hey, Nate, he's over here.
So, yeah. I think that's the end of the episode. I think we've discussed everything.
Literally everything.
Yeah.
The
It
agenda.
Takes Two, streaming services, Big Nate. What more is there to say? Did anything...
There's not a movie to this episode. No, we're already deviating from the formula, and we're going to get very meta.
Yeah.
Kind of like the Suda 51 game.
Is that... anything else?
I mean, we were going to do a whole thing on Spider-Man, but I guess not.
Spider-Man?
We're too good for this now.
I guess that's pretty indie, though.
It's not like you made the intro with Spider-Man. It's not like you're going out of character
perhaps
here,
I better commit to the bit then if I did an intro over it. So,
yeah.
you guys, I don't know. There's this indie movie that...
We watched a movie.
This indie movie that just came out. You may have not heard of it. Spider-Man No Way Home.
It's made by A24.
Yeah.
Yeah.
MCU, third Spider-Man movie in the MCU. I'll just set it up here while we go. So we've had Spider-Man in the MCU has had quite the life. I think he was introduced in Civil War, and then he got his own thing in Homecoming, and it was not a lot.
Yes.
It was still a Spider-Man movie, but it just deviated a bit from like the typical web-slinging, gun-flinging action.
It's not Sam Raimi, Green Goblin, funny line, none of that. No, it's bad. It's not the thing.
Exactly. So we got that, and then we got Far From Home after the events of the Infinity Saga. And then from there, like, things kind of went dark. Like, okay, so Far From Home ends with Mysterio exposing Peter Parker. And for the first...
Yes, he doxes him publicly in front of everyone in New York.
So, like, for the first time in Spider-Man history, Peter Parker is unmasked and everyone knows he's Spider-Man, which is really, really cool. So, from there, a lot of stuff happened. There was that really strange deal that, like, Sony had where, like, they tried to pull out with Spider-Man, and there was, like, a whole lot of discourse over that.
Yeah.
And then add that on top of the fact that, like, we didn't really get advertisements for this for a long, long, long time. I think
this is true.
I think this is, like, the shortest advertising period we've had for any Marvel movie in general. Yeah. But then they dropped the trailer. Everyone saw that the villains were coming back from the other movies.
Everyone lost their
minds. And they were speculating.
Here's the thing.
Speculating that the movie was going to go further than just the villains and bring back the other Spider-Men. And I'm not.
Yes, I believe
I did
that.
not.
You didn't. I don't know why you weren't.
I don't know why.
On the same
I
page
just didn't think
as
so. And then not Spider-Verse, by the way.
That
not
trailer
Spider-Verse.
shot literally showed the lizard getting punched in the face.
Okay, by Ant-Man, maybe.
Quite literally. These are not in the film, Sam.
That's your opinion. He could have been really small.
Oh, well.
But yeah, so I think it was always planned to be a trilogy, this whole Spider-Man thing.
Yeah, I would think so.
But then the actual route with, like, how they wanted this movie to go is actually something that was hotly contested for a while. So, like, in pre-production, when they were writing the story, like, originally they wanted to have Kraven the Hunter introduced somehow to be the main antagonist. That was, like, Watt's first idea. But then, like, the more they talked, the more they oriented themselves more towards, like, an It's a Wonderful Life type of movie, where, like, Peter Parker wishes to, like, never be Spider-Man, and he has to observe the consequences of that. So that kind of mishmashed its way into what we ended up getting. Add on Doctor Strange. We actually get a multiverse this time after Far From Home teased it.
Yeah, and it makes sense with how everything checks out within the MCU itself with the whole magic.
They filmed it. It served as kind of a leeway into more serious stuff like Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, which I assume is going to expand the multiverse even more.
Yes, like kind of some of those crazy, I don't want to spoil it right away, but some of the crazy multiverse stuff they do, I think, is going to get even crazier with that movie.
Yeah, absolutely.
Supposedly.
And then, there are other Marvel things
we'll
I don't
see.
want to spoil right now because they're not relevant to what we're talking about.
Yes.
But, so they finished that. A lot of theorizing about what was going to happen. They didn't really advertise it a lot still. Like, they still dropped trailers, but everyone was just, hotly anticipating that. And so it had its premiere. Everybody saw it. It still hasn't released on home media yet. And yet, having said that, despite being a movie that opened in COVID, it was the as of now, it is the 8th highest grossing film of all time, the 5th highest grossing film in the United States and Canada, the highest grossing Spider-Man film easily, the highest grossing film to be released by Sony, and it has also overtaken Star Wars Rise of Skywalker to gross $1 billion. It surpassed Jumanji Welcome to the Jungle. It's breaking all of these records. And yeah, Scream came out this weekend and has the number 1 spot now, but people were going crazy over Spider-Man No Way Home. It is insane.
Yeah.
The fact that this broke all the pre-ticket sales records and made as much money as it did during COVID is incredible to me. I still can't that's so huge. I have no idea how that happened. I think it just came down to the hype behind it that was built up from the other movies, buying into the fans of the other versions of Spider-Man, and then also the advertising that went into building up the hype even more. So I guess to start off with, do you want to sum up all the Spider-Man movies for you, Spider-Verse and stuff like that?
Kind of rapid fire each one. Okay, this is because there's 10 of them, so
it's a lot.
I guess I'll go through each one except No Way Home, because No Way Home is the one we actually talk about.
We're talking about No Way Home?
Okay. We've already established this, Sam. We don't need to question the motives.
Okay.
Right, so. Alright, lightning round. Here we go. Original Spider-Man 2002 by Sam Raimi. I like it, except I don't think it's super serious. It's a little too campy for me to really kind of get invested, but it does have a very good energy to it. Very fun to watch, even though it's not as deep as I feel like a lot of people try to make it out to be. 3 out of 5. Spider-Man 2, hot take. It's probably the most overrated movie I've ever seen, but it's still a good movie.
What did you say?
It has very, very good... Sam, why do you even care? You don't even like
from the
Spider-Man 2
call.
either.
I identify myself with Spider-Man 2.
He says, as he literally defends Far From Homecoming as his favorite Spider-Man movie.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Even more so than Spider-Verse, because he doesn't like big kingpins. So if anyone's leaving the call, I think it's you or Sam. So.
I don't like Gru.
Yeah, you don't. You theoretically don't. It's quite embarrassing. Not gonna lie.
Compact kingpin. You know what I'm saying?
Well, he's kind of the opposite of that. Really.
No, I think he's pretty
really
compact.
Think about it. No.
Yeah.
If anyone knows the concept of compact,
no, I think I know what I'm talking about. Look at how compact his matter is. Look at the curvature.
Yes, look at how compact The Secret of NIMH 2 was written, because it did so much better than the original in terms of moving the plot along.
You can actually stop talking.
Okay, back to Spider-Man 2. I do think it's kind of overrated. I'm sorry, but it's still very good. I think there's a lot of great sequences in that movie, but at the same time, there's still stuff in there that I really just cannot get behind or just really kind of frustrates me. Mainly the whole plot with Mary Jane. That really was kind of a flat line for me in all 3 movies. But for every great thing this movie has, there's something that holds it back. But overall, that was a 3 out of 5 as well for me. Maybe even a 3.5 if I give it yet another chance, but we'll see. Spider-Man 3, I don't like this one. I'm sorry. I'm just... It feels very rushed. I know that the production story behind this was that Sony got their hands on it and they kind of ruined it and they threw Venom in there, and that was a very poor decision on their half. So, despite having funny memes and I guess like 1 or 2 moments where that original quality shines through, it is hampered by a lot of studio meddling, and I'm shocked that there's so many people that seem to accept this rather than be outraged by this, since we live in an age where the Snyder Cut exists and we seem to have the polar opposite reaction to that movie than we have with Spider-Man 3. That is a 2 out of 5 in my opinion. I'm just so sorry. It's not that good. Then moving on to the Amazing Spider-Man movies. I kind of want to rewatch the first Amazing Spider-Man to really get my thoughts kind of down again, but from what I remember, it's not that good, really. I know that we love Andrew Garfield now, but to be fair, Andrew Garfield was never the problem with the Amazing Spider-Man movies. It was the writing. Because, like, if anything, No Way Home kind of confirms this with the Lizard. Like, is anyone frustrated that the Lizard got, like, 2 minutes of screen time? I don't really think so. But, again, I do want to rewatch, and I think there might be something I can go to appreciate on a second going, but for the most part, I think it really lacked sorely in some quality writing to really get me latched onto that Spider-Man. I would say that's a 2 out of 5. And then we get to The Amazing Spider-Man 2, and that is the worst Spider-Man movie, and I will not hear otherwise.
Proof?
Quite literally, it is a commercial, by the by. Every problem that The Amazing Spider-Man 1 has, it seems to double down on. Not quite sure how it found a way to do that, but, I mean, this is the movie business. They can do anything, I guess. There's not really a good villain established in Spider-Man 2. I mean, Electro can be very interesting, and you can do a good job modernizing him, but literally his motive is he was fallen into a tank of electric eels, and
which they make fun
Spider-Man
of here.
Forgot his birthday. Yes, we'll get into that when we get to No Way Home, but like, it is very weird to see them try to do, it's like the grounded modern Spider-Man, but then you literally have electric powers because electric eels. Really stupid. They try shoehorning in. I think a huge problem with that movie is that there's just so many subplots that I can't just like do a quick blurb on it. Like, there's a thing with Spider-Man and Aunt May, and then there's a thing with Spider-Man and MJ, and then Spider-Man has to go find out who his parents are, and then Spider-Man has to deal with Electro, and then Spider-Man has to deal with his friendship with Harry, and then Harry's the Green Goblin, and then Harry's kicked out of Oscorp, but then he's back in Oscorp. Like, the whole script is very, very muddled and just all over the place and just a mess that really is... You can't fix this one. And there's not even a lot of good Spider-Man action in that one, too, so... Unfortunately, not even Andrew Garfield can save The Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Dang.
And I would not want to rewatch this one. I'm sorry. It's a 1 out of 5. So... jumping ahead now to Tom Holland, we start with Homecoming. Quite personally, before No Way Home, Homecoming stood as my favorite live-action Spider-Man for a couple of reasons. On one hand, I did like the more, again, it's another quote-unquote modern take of Spider-Man, but this felt more in line, because this also took place in the MCU, but I actually found it to be rather believable, because I did enjoy the whole aspect of this version of Spider-Man going through high school. And then I also understand, side note, they're going to be doing a high school, like, animated series.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Maybe we'll get some stuff. So, who knows? Maybe we'll get more insight there. But in terms of Homecoming, I think this was a great, like, first solo movie for Spider-Man because Civil War already did a great job kind of already establishing everything we need to know about his background. Like, he was already bitten by the spider off screen, and then he makes his own suit, so that already establishes some rules of, okay, so he's tech-based, he's not naturally based like Sam Raimi's Spider-Man. And then we also got some good action there in Civil War. But I think Homecoming did a really great job just establishing a bunch of characteristics for Spider-Man. It's really good to kind of see the younger version of him wanting to, like, stand and do the right thing. Like, there's the whole trip to Washington, D.C., where it's like he's trying to, like, stop the robbery, but at the same time he has his school, like, debate that he wants to go to and all that. And it's really, I think it was really well handled with Vulture, I think. Because I think that was a very interesting dynamic with the whole, oh, I'm your girlfriend's dad, and I'm just, it's not like he's doing it out of spite or revenge or anything, but actually it's like, I need to, like, support my family, and this is the best way I know
Yeah,
how.
it's like a better Sandman kind of
considering considering, like, the struggles that I'm going through right now. Like, I kind of enjoy that with his dynamic. And I just think there was a lot of good flourishes. I think it was a great first step, and I liked a lot of, I really enjoyed how he matured with his character arc in Homecoming, because I liked how he started out. It's like, oh, I'm just kind of like messing around, and I'm just like the guy in the neighborhood, But then like at the end, when Iron Man's like, okay, you can like join and like be part of the Avengers. You get the Iron Spider suit and all that. But it was really interesting, and I think it was a great choice for him to say, actually, I think I want to just stay back in the neighborhood and help out on a more personal level. Like, I think having that really did a great job humanizing Spider-Man and really stuck to his mythos of looking out for everyone and really kind of playing into that part of his character. So, personally, I really enjoyed how Homecoming turned out. That was a 4 out of 5 in my opinion. And then, I guess, there's also the Venom movies, but we're not talking about Venom. I already talked about Venom 2.
Yeah, that's enough.
And I guess to an extent Venom 1, but, you know.
Bad.
They're a thing. Bad, but I guess enjoyable, for me at least, but.
Alright.
And then, now that leaves us with Far From Home. I will say, I think Far From Home is the one that I want to rewatch the most out of all of these live-action Spider-Man. Mainly because it's been a while and I definitely want to refresh my thoughts, but from what I got out of it, it was good. Definitely, I think a step down from Homecoming in a few ways, but I feel like there might be some people that really try to like undermine it, but I think there's still some qualities there to be had. I would say the biggest issue I have with Far From Home is that I feel like Peter doesn't get that good like character growth that he got in Homecoming, because like Homecoming, it was great to see him go from, okay, like I'm kind of messing around, to like starting to be more mature and like accepting the whole, oh, I'm not going to take the Iron Spider role and all that. But you kind of do get that in Far From Home with the whole like, oh, I'm going to make my own legacy, but like I'm going to remember Tony Stark, because part of that is the whole, he has to learn to like grieve and like accept the whole Tony sacrifice in the previous Endgame. So that was mildly interesting for his character, but again, it's been a while since I've seen it, so I definitely want to refresh it. But for what I got out of it, I did think it was still pretty enjoyable. It felt very in line with his version of Spider-Man, even if it was a step down from Homecoming. So for me, that was a 3.5 out of 5. And then, side note, Spider-Verse is the best Spider-Man, 5 out of 5. Don't question it. So good. The animation's literally unmatched. And it has such an amazing understanding, both of Spider-Man and just kind of celebrating superheroes in general. Not like in a Free Guy kind of a way where it's like, oh, look at the lightsaber, clap. Look at the Captain America shield, clap. Like, actually understanding
Wait,
like,
those are in
the
Free
actions
Guy?
that these... Yeah. In Free... Yeah. Okay, another side tangent, because we're already doing this. Literally, the climax of Free Guy is Ryan Reynolds has to fight buff, evil Ryan Reynolds, and to do so, he just pulls out a Captain America shield and then a lightsaber.
Oh, really? I guess, is that because Disney
Yes.
owns 20th Century Fox now?
It was a whole thing because it was like made by Fox or something, but that was like made during the Disney merger, and then they're like, okay, put some of our stuff in there, and then we can get more people to see it and clap.
Okay.
So, and it was quite embarrassing. I thought.
Yeah.
I bet if I rewatched that movie, I would not give it a 2 out of 5. So that I don't even know why I still have it as a 2 out of 5.
Oh well.
So, but yes, that is the lightning round. My thoughts on the Spider-Man movies, except for No Way Home, because we're going to get into No Way Home soon. But first, Sam.
Yeah.
What do you have to say about Spider-Man's career in film?
Raimi trilogy's fine, save for the third one. There's a reason people can't... Okay, how do I say it? Like, there's a reason that whenever people are defending the third movie, they can never do more than, like, say it's funny or just, like, point out one scene and make up an emotional impact around it. It's because Spider-Man 3 is bad,
Yes.
okay? Stop lying.
Mm-hmm.
And then,
It deserves a good amount of the hate that it deserves a lot of the disliking. It's not we did not misread it. We read it perfectly
the
fine
first
back
time.
in
Yeah,
2007.
we had it right the first time. The first one is charming up to a point, but then the novelty wears off, and I think it just becomes boring. Second one is easily the best. Again, a lot of good moments, but it's also matched against like a really all-over-the-place package where Peter Parker kind of doesn't have the best arc, in my opinion. Script kind of just does whatever it wants for the sake of drama. Dr. Octopus isn't really there. It's kind of whatever, despite the good stuff.
I would disagree. I thought Doc Ock was pretty good. Even though I feel like...
I feel
like he could have had more presence, but I think his scenes were solid.
I think, like...
Like, I feel like it could have been more.
I think all of the drama that Dr. Octopus could potentially have is just undermined by, like, the tentacles, they've hacked my brain, and now I am just a slave to them. Like, that doesn't really have a struggle or anything that he plays with. He just kind of turns into an instrument of, like, whatever the script wants him to do, I think. Like, he doesn't really feel like a person anymore. He's just like, I am a villain now because this experiment went wrong. And then, like, it just, like, Peter Parker breaks it and he sacrifices himself. And that's it. Like, I just didn't find that very engaging. So, yeah, there's that. It's been too long since I've seen the Amazing Spider-Man movies, so I'm just not going to say anything about them. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse is really good. In some ways, it's not that good, in my opinion. I think it starts off really good before piling on way too much for its own good, before kind of turning out into an unsatisfying package by the end of things. But it's still, like, one of the best Spider-Man movies. I like it. And then...
Into the Spider-Verse?
Yeah, Into the Spider-Verse.
Well, I disagree.
I'm sure you do.
Yeah, because I have the correct taste.
That's your opinion.
That is objectively the right
That's
way
your
to see
opinion.
things.
It's a good movie.
And you can't have your own.
It's a good movie.
It is.
But, like...
It's a great movie, as a matter of fact. So...
I think, like, all of the praise that it gets is partially due to the creative voice that, like, it has within the Spider-Man franchise. Its visuals and also just, like, the standout moments, because the connective tissue in between all of that was kind of weak, in my opinion. But to move on to, like, the actual subject, Homecoming is my favorite. Yeah. I think it is the only Spider-Man movie that does an excellent job blending, like, the actual dynamic of Spider-Man, that being his, like, personal life versus, like, the demands of being a superhero. That is the one that, like, best encapsulates that and, like, builds a story out of it, and it's really cool.
Yeah.
And, his whole thing in that movie is, like, I don't actually want to be an Avenger. I'm just going to be a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. And I like that a lot. Yeah. I think Far From Home kind of undermines that by him just going, I'm going to be an Avenger now. Like, I kind of wish there was more leeway into that. Yeah. And it doesn't have nearly as much, like, focus on, you know, personal life versus superhero life, which is a shame. But it's still fun. Mm-hmm. And, yeah. Then he was doxxed by Mysterio.
Yes. He said he made fun of him on Twitter. And Jake Gyllenhaal smiling directly at the camera.
That's a really good meme.
Put the image on screen.
I will. Now that I've done that, let's move on to the actual movie. So.
Yes, finally, after all these hours.
So let's do it, Grant. He's doxxed. What does he do?
No Way Home. He has no way home. How does he get home?
Simple. By going to Doctor Strange.
No, go to Google Maps.
Oh, that's a good one. I see.
See, I'm smarter than Spider-Man. I could be a superhero.
You should be in every superhero thing.
Where's my Marvel movie? Disney? Why don't you put me in?
I don't know. Maybe it's because you...
But...
I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to say it.
I'm just going to say that's your opinion, Sam.
Oh!
So...
Oh! Yeah. Ow. That really hurt.
saw it coming. So
yeah.
but yes. No Way Home.
He goes.
First impressions. What are we thinking?
In several ways, this is the closest I think the Holland trilogy is to a traditional Spider-Man movie, but at the same time, in a lot of ways, it's also like the least Spider-Man has ever been. To put it into perspective, I don't think, again, it's quite as good as Homecoming, but like it's pretty much tied for Far From Home for me. Like it's still really good. It's still really pretty good. What about you?
I'm still thinking it through, but for me, I think it by just a hair, like very, very close, like right, like neck and neck. I think it barely edges out Homecoming for me, and it's my new favorite live-action Spider-Man.
Okay.
For a few reasons, which I will hopefully get into. So.
All right. Well,
yes.
In this movie, Peter Parker, having been doxxed, goes to Doctor Strange to like erase it, but
after not getting into MIT,
getting into MIT, they introduced Daredevil 2 for what that's worth, which is cool.
Yes.
One of the things I want to like,
caught the brick.
Yeah, one thing I like want to compliment right off the bat is that I think No Way Home does a commendable job setting up or like implying a future for the MCU without making it just about that. Like it's all very intertwined.
It's still focused on concluding this version of Spider-Man.
Yes.
But at the same time, it's still doing such a good job laying out the seeds for future projects that we could explore.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So.
But yeah, he goes to Doctor Strange, and they try to cast a spell to like erase the doxing that Mysterio put upon Peter Parker, but they mess up, and that unwittingly brings into this universe all of the villains, save for Spider-Verse, from the other Spider-Man movies. So we got Green Goblin from Spider-Man 1.
And not Amazing Spider-Man 2, mind you. And no Venom from Spider-Man 3 either.
No. But we get a different Venom, though, don't we?
And no James Franco either. Because if you want to count him as a villain in Spider-Man 3,
Drat.
if that counts, then he's not... No James Franco for you today, Sam.
What? Why?
Because James Franco was my inside joke, and so, if anything, I'm upset.
No, I'm sorry for your loss. But yeah, that happens, and so most of the movie is like... I think most of the movie is fair to say is like Peter going back and forth with Doctor Strange and like trying to convince him to like not kill... Like, okay... I should have backed up because like the villains got teleported to this timeline right before they die in their own movies, right?
Basically, yes. That's the general idea.
So Peter Parker wants to like save them so that they like become good guys before they
first
get
he rounds
back.
the first half is like he kind of rounds them up.
Yeah, with the help
like,
of Strange.
There's that whole scene with Electro and Sandman, so he gets them. Then he gets Green Goblin.
Yep.
The Lizard was gotten off screen. Doc Ock was the first one, and that was that really good bridge scene. So.
Yep.
And then, but yeah, so that first half is basically, okay, we got to round up all 5 of them. And then once they do that, Doctor Strange comes in and he's like, okay, I'm going to send them back. But then they imply, it's already established that if they go back, they die. So then Spider-Man, in a display of his character, decides, no, what if we can stop them? Like, well, not stop. What if we can save them? Which I thought was really a neat little flourish for his character.
But then that backfires in probably...
Well, no, then he goes into the mirror realm.
Okay, yeah, that's a good scene, actually. We should talk about that.
Yeah, that's another interesting fight that has a lot of good visuals. Like the whole, like...
It's him...
He's flying through a shopping mall.
Doctor Stranging his way through, like, this mirror dimension.
Yes, but then he maths his way to victory.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, like, he beats Doctor Strange, and that part's really cool. And then he tries fixing all of them, but that backfires horribly, and probably my favorite scene of the movie.
Thank you, Willem Dafoe.
Okay, can I say, I think Green Goblin here is a lot better than he was in the very first Spider-Man movie.
Yes. Yeah, that's probably my hottest take with this movie.
He's so much scarier.
Green Goblin here is much...
Like, he
Because I feel like they
dangerous
definitely
in
connect
this one.
more. Yes, he still kind of maintains a lot of that personality you see in Spider-Man 1,
Yeah.
but like there's actually feels like there's a threat behind.
Yeah, it's actually
Willem
like
Dafoe.
centered into like
It's
a
not just kind of a
sinister-
joke of him like flying around and all that. Like he actually feels like I can slam you through an apartment wall and I will not stop, like a Terminator.
Yeah. So that making him like the ultimate villain, the big baddie, was a really good move. I want to say.
Yes.
It's kind of like a fun going back to like the origins of Spider-Man, making Green Goblin.
Yeah,
the bad guy.
again, like kind of looking at that from a surface level, like Green Goblin, you could say is like the Joker to Spider-Man.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Like Green Goblin to Spider-Man is the Joker to Batman. So I think that was a really kind of neat way to like reincorporate that kind of main idea of Spider-Man back into this movie.
And so from there, like you know,
Well, yeah. So he tries to fix them, but then that goes wrong. His Aunt May died in the process, which is kind of the biggest
the
loss
Uncle Ben
from
moment
that.
of the trilogy, I guess.
Yes, because I mean, she literally says with great
Yeah,
power
yeah.
great responsibility.
That's what I'm saying.
So.
And so
And then
I really
everything seems bleak.
yeah. But then
But
Ned,
then-
having harnessed the powers of
Meme
Doctor
icon
Strange.
Ned Leeds himself says, "Okay, this is a crossover episode," and then because it's already established earlier that like he gets to like hold on to like the Doctor Strange ring
After
Spider-Man beat
yeah,
Doctor
in the mirror
Strange.
dimension.
Yes. So then through that, that's how he's like, okay, like let me see Peter Parker, but then a portal opens up, but that leads to Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man.
So that
Which
was
then kinda
the
leads to,
big
like, a joke.
surprise. He
Yes, and then from there he's like, let me see Peter Parker, and then Tobey Maguire pops out. And so then it's just finally time.
and it's a whole thing.
It is. But then there's also that really good talk on like the school rooftop that really kind of cuts deep into like Spider-Man's character. He's like, yeah, like it's interesting, I think, to see how Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man really kind of focuses on the events of his trilogy and kind of just reminiscing on that versus Andrew Garfield's like kind of talking about like what kind of hypothetically happened in the future post The Amazing Spider-Man 2. He's like, oh, like once like MJ died, like I kind of went down this darker path. And it was interesting to kind of see kind of a next like step, a logical step, I would say, for his character. So.
Yeah, even though they're kind of introduced towards the tail end of the movie, it's
Yeah,
cool to see
I
that
would
level
say
of
that's the start of
interaction.
the third act.
Yeah, that's how they start the third
Yeah.
act.
Is that Andrew and Toby are back in the movie. So.
And they have all the funny interactions.
They get all the audience applause. So.
And so from there...
Not Tom Holland. We get him every day.
Yeah. We can have...
Also, weird side note, is it just me or does Andrew Garfield remind me of Ben Schwartz? That I can't get that mental image out of my head.
I think it's just you.
No, go watch the Sonic movie,
No.
and go watch Parks and Rec, and then go watch Andrew Garfield in Spider-Man No Way Home, Sam.
No.
And then see where I'm coming from.
I'd rather just watch Sonic 2.
Yeah, because you are pretty hyped for that. So.
Maybe.
But that's not the important...
No.
That's not what we're talking about. We are talking about Spider-Man.
We are talking about
So.
Spider-Man. So, yeah, again, so in some ways I do think this is a lot like a traditional Spider-Man movie in a way that like felt like the writers understood and like wanted to buy into and expand on like the building blocks of a Spider-Man movie. You had like stuff
Right.
like the bridge fight with Dr. Octopus, which was very like going back to the roots of like that rivalry. Again, bringing back the Green Goblin, having them do stuff like swing around on the Statue of Liberty. I think this had like the most New York of any of the Holland movies, so that felt very in line. Aunt May dying with the
Yeah.
great power, great responsibility. So like in many ways, you have a lot of that like understanding of like the core components of Spider-Man. But then in the same movie, you have the mirror dimension with Doctor Strange. You have the whole multi-dimensional thing. You have
Yes, crossing over Raimi with Andrew Garfield's movies. With like the MCU, which is very...
MCU jokes.
Actually...
And then
Yes.
the whole caboodle. So it's a very interesting combination of both old and new. My favorite part of the movie is probably the whole thing with Happy's apartment, because that starts off really interestingly with, like, all the interactions with the villains in Spider-Man. And then, like, you kind of get this glimmer of hope when Dr. Octavius, that's his name, right?
Yes.
Yeah, he's cured, so then they keep on going. And, like, up until this point, Green Goblin is just, like, nice Willem Dafoe, like, his alter ego hasn't kicked in yet, so he's, like, a mentor to Peter for, like, a good part of this movie.
Kind of.
But then everything goes wrong. He turns back into Green Goblin, sets all of the other villains that aren't Doc Ock free, and that sets off this really, really cool, well-choreographed, tense, like, apartment fight between Peter Parker and all the other guys. I think just Green Goblin, actually.
I think, mainly between him and Green Goblin, but, like, the Lizard was in it for,
like, a little bit,
hot second. But it was mainly between Spider-Man and Green Goblin.
Yeah, and, like, again, that's when, like, it really hit me how scary Green Goblin, or, like, dangerous Green Goblin was in this.
Yes, because, like, I rewatched, like, a part of that clip, and it's, like, crazy, because, like, Tom Holland, like, jumped off a wall and then started, like, punching him in the face, and Willem Dafoe's just, like, staring right back at him.
Laughing.
So.
Yeah.
Yes, in fact.
So that was really good. He falls through all the floors, and then that culminates with, like, the murder of Aunt May, which is really, really tragic.
Don't gloss over the fact that he hit the most deadliest spine buster in WWE history.
Yeah.
So much so that they collapsed through 10 apartment floors.
They did.
And then Daredevil didn't do anything.
I'm so ashamed that, like, I hadn't bought into the Willem Dafoe hype before this movie. Like, I knew who he was, I liked him, but only after this movie was I like, I want to see all the Willem Dafoe stuff now.
Yes. Now I want to watch The Lighthouse.
Exactly.
Finally. A good 4x3 black and white movie.
I wonder what you're comparing that to. But yeah, he's fantastic.
Mary and Max.
No. But yeah, because that movie isn't completely black and white, Grant.
How would you know?
Because certain things that are thematically relevant are colored.
You sound like you've seen the movie.
Anyway.
You could be making that up.
No, watch it.
Maybe I will.
What was I saying? We were talking about No Way Home. Any like big things you want to talk about? My favorite part, again, the apartment scene.
Yeah. I think it was really nice to, like, find a way. It's kind of crazy because I think the most insane part is that it kind of finds a way to please everyone.
Yeah.
Which I feel like is a way, like, Spider-Man fans, obviously, but, like, because you can't please everyone. But I think it was, like, crazy to find a way to incorporate both Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, and still, like, find a way to give, like, a good final, like, conclusive ending to this trilogy of Spider-Man movies.
And the other ones,
while
too,
still
right?
Finding in a sense, I would say, because, I mean, I still don't know if they're going to, because in this day and age where it's like, it feels like every not released superhero movie is getting, like, their own little private corner of Twitter dedicated solely to them. I don't know if they're going to do another Amazing Spider-Man or if they're going to do a fourth Sam Raimi Spider-Man, but I think with where it was at, it felt like a great way to kind of find a way to give good closure to all of these characters, in a way. Like, for example, Andrew Garfield got a big moment because there was a scene where, like, Ned and MJ were falling, but then Ned gets saved by the Doctor Strange cape, while Andrew Garfield gets redemption and saving MJ from falling. So,
yeah, it's stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think
it feels really nice.
As a celebration of Spider-Man the character, I think it was.
Yes, like, it finds a way. And, like, I think it's really interesting in the third act because, like, I think a great part of this movie is how self-aware its script is, I would say. Like, it kind of finds a good line to know when should we prop something up and, like, actually, like, praise this thing, or when should we just kind of, like, make fun of ourselves from something we did in the past. So, like, it kind of spends more time seriously with, like, the more respected names like Doc Ock and Green Goblin. But then the flip side of this is, like, Electro kind of is, like, a point of, like, a joke, but I wouldn't say in this movie he's a joke. More so it's like, oh, okay, like, you fell into a vat of electric eels, and, like, it's kind of clearly poking fun of, like, oh, that's stupid, like, I should watch out where I'm stepping and all that. And, like, they make a comparisons like, oh, you fell in a vat of eels, and Sandman's talking, it's like, I fell into a super collider. So it's kind of finding a nice way to like have all of these interesting parallels and like kind of complement its history as Spider-Man.
And like I think it does get a little overwhelmed, like sometimes like a notable amount of times. Not all the villains are like focused on as much as others, and that's kind of inevitable. But like,
because like, are you really torn up about the fact that the Lizard got like 2 scenes
in Sandman?
Be real. Yeah, and Sandman got like 5 minutes at best.
And then Doc Ock wasn't really in the movie for very much either. Like, he shows up at the beginning and the end, but that's kind of
He gets a little bit in the middle, I would say. But
yeah? Okay.
Yeah, that's true. Outside of the bridge fight, there isn't too much with him. Even though I still think there's an appropriate amount of screen time for him, given that he is one of the larger villains in the Spider-Man history. So.
And then, again, like... the other Spider-Men aren't like super prevalent throughout the whole thing. They do still kind of feel like a last-minute addition to me, and like they get the job done, but like it's kind of like what Spider-Verse is. Like they introduce all of the other Spider people at like the mid-second act point. Like as try as they may, like they don't really get nearly as much time as I would like for them to like properly really like cement themselves as a presence in the movie. So like by time they have to leave, it kind of feels like they left as quickly as they arrived, which is not to say that they're bad. Both Raimi and Spider-Man and Web Spider-Man do a good job with like what they're given.
Yeah, I can see that, but like I guess for me, I'm not necessarily needing all of that screen time for them because from what I got, I feel like they had just the right amount of screen time in all honesty because I think it was a good job because I like to think that the start of the third act was their introduction into the movie. And it's good, too, because like there isn't really a scene without them once they get introduced. Because it's like, okay, they get introduced, they have the talk on the school rooftop, and then they're in the school laboratory. And like there's a bunch of like good little interactions. Like there's one interaction between Tobey Maguire and Andrew where it's like, oh, like, do you have time to be Spider-Man? It's like, no, I still don't really have time for that. Yeah, and it's like, there was an interesting detail I saw people point out where it's like when Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man got introduced, he was still in his Spider-Man costume the whole time. But to juxtapose that, when Tobey Maguire got introduced, he was in like normal street clothes and he was like Peter Parker. So, yeah, it's a nice kind of a juxtaposition.
Yeah. I also, and this is not as important as it was in Far From Home because it was still trying to pay attention to that angle. But I also kind of wish like we got more, again, stuff with like Peter Parker's personal life because it is really dead set. Yeah. And again, like this makes sense because it's the most like the stakes are the highest here. But I still kind of wish like
it's very interesting kind of seeing how it ramps up. I would say.
Yeah, they kind of imply a certain level of like impact with like Flash figuring out who he is, his whole school figuring out who he is, but like it's never really as big of a thing as I would prefer, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Yeah. Ned and MJ like still have a role in the story, but just like a little more.
Like I find it's interesting to see it start out where it's like, okay, like I'm just dealing with like graduating high school and like getting ready for college and all that, and seeing him kind of grow up to get to that point. But then it is interesting because then once everything starts to kind of unfold, like it does a good job at finding great satisfying ways, but still keeping the scale like slowly growing until we get to the final Statue of Liberty fight. Like it starts out with a run in between just Spider-Man and Doc Ock on a bridge, which I think is a great like starting off point of kind of just having these two fight yet again. But then you kind of juxtapose that, and then the next one, it's both Electro and Sandman, so you get 2 for 1. Then it just keeps ramping up, and then you get the whole apartment scene, which really kind of raises the stakes with the villains getting loose, and like Spider-Man needing to turn for help, and then finally concluding with the Statue of Liberty fight.
Yeah, so all the superhero stuff is really cool. Just considering what they ultimately end up doing with Spider-Man, I just kind of wish like the more personal side got a bit more attention.
I see.
Even though like
I feel like we might get that in a future.
Yeah,
trilogy,
I don't know how reasonable that is to say at the same time because this is like well past like a 2-hour mark. I guess.
Yes, like the runtime is like 2.5 hours or something like that.
Basically.
It's like, I think it's one of the longest entries in the MCU.
Yeah, for sure.
With
Do you want to talk about the ending, the end resolution?
Yes. Should
I guess
delve
so.
into that? All right. So, after saving the day and getting rid of all the Green Goblin juice and Willem Dafoe's brainstem, it turns out that there's actually been a horrible miscalculation because Doctor Strange was going to cast a spell to reset everything with the multiverse, but it seems the cracks are starting to slip. But in order to do so, Spider-Man has to make the ultimate sacrifice and make the entire world, like everyone, forget who is Peter Parker.
Yeah.
So that means that's like Ned doesn't know who he is, MJ doesn't know who he is, Happy doesn't know who he is.
So like at the beginning, he was like trying to have it so that even if the spell worked,
yeah,
like
it was
some
just
key
like everyone
people
forgets. Yeah, it felt much more self-centered. It's like, okay, everyone just forgets that I'm Spider-Man except these people. And then that's what causes it to go wrong. But then his growth is clearly shown in how he says, okay, just everyone forgets.
It's gotten
this
too
is
serious.
clearly...
Let's do it. So like, I think it really lived up to the No Way Home like sense of the title very well. Because
the actual
like
title of this movie.
At the beginning of this movie, he's already past the point of no return, so he just has to accept it and like erase everything.
Yes. And I think that's kind of well done with how they handle it. But I think what really kind of cements that idea is like the following scene, because like it's clearly established through J.K. Simmons being J. Jonah Jameson.
Oh,
like,
yeah,
okay,
J.K. Simmons back.
Yes.
I forgot about that.
He was back already in Far From Home.
Yeah. But it's cool to see him do stuff.
He's still, yeah. It's kind of funny seeing him be like an Alex Jones type of like crazy conspiracy theorist running his own like web show out of his apartment. So I like that.
He's a lot of fun.
That was a nice little. Yes, but so in the end he's like, okay, I'm gonna find you at the coffee shop and I'm gonna tell you everything, and they're like, okay, make the sacrifice. So he goes through with it and everything is pulled through, but then in an interesting twist, he doesn't actually reveal everything and he kind of just accepts the idea and he starts to move on. Which then also culminates in how in that last scene, like he gets his own apartment and then he's like listening to a police scanner. He makes his own suit.
Yeah.
That like looks kind of in line with how it looks comically speaking.
So like like by the end of it, he is now fully transitioned into like
I kind of like, and
Spider-Man
that's kind of one of my favorite parts with the movie is how it ends. Is because even if there is no more movies from this point on, it does kind of feel like this version of like Spider-Man has gotten from where he started in the MCU at Civil War to like this new fully fledged developed Spider-Man. And I think the benefit of that is going to be, since I'm pretty positive that there's going to be more Spider-Man movies. Now we have this like perfect foundation to like start a new like batch of stories, and like you can legitimately take this anywhere.
Yeah.
So
I actually like
don't mess it up.
Do you think Spider-Man is like gonna be like the Avengers don't know who he is anymore, right?
Well, I think if I had to guess what they're going to do, I feel like they're going to do this thing where, because now that Disney has Fox, what I feel like they're going to do is now they're going to start to like incorporate some of those like Fox-owned heroes into the MCU. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if the X-Men suddenly make an appearance somewhere, or if like Fantastic Four get a movie. Yeah, Deadpool, I guess. That could be more of like a side project, or if they want to really get meta, you could do like a funny Disney Plus exclusive thing. But I do feel like they're going to start establish even more Marvel heroes into the universe. And like I really do not follow the comic books at all, but from what I've seen, like Spider-Man does like every now and then always like kind of team up with certain like affiliations and whatnot. Like there's been times he's teamed up with the X-Men. Like he had a run where I think he replaced one of the members of the Fantastic Four and he was a part of their team. So what I think is that this is kind of an end of like mid 2010s Spider-Man as you saw in Civil War, and now it's like this new starting off point to see him like mature and have like all these other encounters.
That's more in line with like traditional Spider-Man.
Right, exactly.
So it's cool.
Yes. And people are actually being civil about it online from what I've seen, which is the last thing I was expecting. So
that's good.
Yes.
But yeah, as far as the future of Spider-Man goes, you were right about like there being more movies. So like even as early as August 2019, it was already confirmed that a fourth film in the franchise was being developed. Even though Holland was originally contracted for 3, like they were already working on a fourth one.
I see.
What it looks like there's like another trilogy going on with this like transition from Spider-Man into like a more independent state from the Avengers. Like now that that's happened, I think we're gonna like another trilogy of Spider-Man films where like he's that and does like different things. So like they're developing that again. Right. Sony's hopping on the bandwagon and they're producing more Spider-Man stuff. And for now, it looks like that's like we're getting a lot more Spider-Man content, which makes sense because this is the 8th highest grossing film of all time. But yeah,
we gotta get that money somehow.
It's cool that this came together as well as it did, and I appreciate it.
Overall, I think it's very enjoyable. I feel like it's really in line with Spider-Man. It really kind of feels very invigorating, and it's very enjoyable to watch and see all these classic faces actually get put into new, interesting situations, and seeing how they interact with each other.
Absolutely. It does.
However, I will say the one problem with this movie is that the magic number, the song that they put in the credits,
I looked
is
for
not
it too.
available on Spotify.
I looked for it too.
This is the biggest problem with this movie is that I do not have the song readily available, and it's not really a problem with the movie, but someone needs to fix it, is the point that I'm
When
getting.
the song spoils the movie. That awkward moment when the song spoils the movie.
Well, it's at the end of the movie, though, so it doesn't really spoil anything.
True. But like, if you listen to it before the movie.
Yeah, like if someone said, "Oh, do you hear this song?" It's like, "Oh, that's cool." It's like, "Oh, so there's the magic." No, oh,
there you go. Yeah.
Yeet.
I guess
Spider-Man.
I think it's fair to say that like the multiverse is really the next step for the MCU because it's gotten so big at this point that like that's the only way you can expand, right?
I would think so.
Me too.
Like, we already kind of topped the bar with like Endgame with this whole like, okay, we've crossed over a whole decade of movies, so what can we do now to make things even more interesting? And so I think the multiverse is definitely going to be a potential next step because
that's what I think.
The next movie is Doctor Strange, right?
Yeah, and even before that, we got Loki. We had No Way Home, and now we're getting this. So, like, I think they're really leaning into the timeline, like, multiverse. Yeah,
this idea that, like, any Marvel like iteration could, like, pop over.
Yeah. Like, the sky's the limit if you do that.
Yeah, Ben Affleck replaces Charlie Cox as Daredevil. It works for Marvel again.
Of course. So, I think that's really interesting to think about. Did you have anything else you wanted to say about it?
I mean, I wouldn't say like I'm being super vigilant about how the future of the MCU is shaping up. Like, I still don't have Disney Plus, so I haven't really been keeping up with any of the shows. And like Hawkeye also came out. I haven't really been keeping up with that either.
Yeah, I haven't seen Hawkeye.
Yeah, but like I think Doctor Strange 2 is coming out. I might catch that in theaters. Thor 4 sounds pretty interesting. I definitely want to catch Guardians 3 because I want to support James Gunn because he does good superhero stuff, so definitely want to get around to seeing that. But honestly, I'm just going to like kind of just see what happens next.
Yeah.
I mean, if anything, I feel like maybe a break from superhero stuff might be nice because after 2021 with everything, with like 9 different Marvel projects, with everything going on with DC and just all this other stuff going on, I think maybe just taking a step back to get a quick breather from the finale with No Way Home would be kind of nice.
Yeah, No Way Home, if that's your point, that's like a really good choice for a breaking off point, I guess, if you want to.
Yeah, just kind of a good place to kind of like say, okay, I've had my fill, I'm going to take a break.
Yeah.
So
that's really cool. The last thing that I wanted to briefly touch on, just to kind of get all our thoughts on, was the current state of like franchise revival for movies.
Yes.
Spider-Man is kind of like this, but like it's more a part of the MCU, so I just didn't really see it as the same thing. It's called like, I don't know if this is like the official term for it, but it's commonly referred to as requels. Like a sort of in between of like a reboot and a sequel. This is a trend that is really like heavily implemented nowadays in like the blockbuster era of like franchise Hollywood. I think, is it fair to say that it started with Star Wars with The Force Awakens? I think that's really where
I feel like you could say that because like
that's like when the
I
big
definitely
one.
think with how like the movie industry has been in recent years, I definitely think that's like Star Wars certainly set a trend where it's like, because it feels like
It
the
made
thing nowadays
all the
is
money.
like, oh, everything is always just here is thing we made back in the day, but now for modern audiences.
Yeah, so we're gonna introduce
like,
new characters.
It's just been everywhere. Like
But we're gonna
Star
bring
Wars
in
did
the
it,
new
Jurassic
characters.
Park did it, Ghostbusters did it twice.
Mad Max
Disney
did
is
Fury
doing
Road.
it a lot.
Blade Runner
But Mad
even
Max
did
Fury
it.
Road was actually good.
Yeah.
And Blade Runner was also really good, so they get a pass.
They get a pass. Halloween did it. The Matrix just did it.
Yes.
Terminator
Matrix,
did it.
That's right. Space Jam did it, I guess.
Yeah, and Scream 5 just came out. Even though it's called
Scream did it.
Scream.
Yeah, why isn't it called 5 Cream? Come on.
Why isn't it called 5 Cream? Get it done, guys.
You had it right there.
You fools.
And
you were the
You
chosen
called it
one.
Scream again. Why'd you do
Why?
that? No.
Like, there's already a Scream. Make the 5th one.
We already... It's like, what's an example? It's like when you call this... It's like in a video game reboot, it's like, oh, there's Devil May Cry, but now there's DMC Devil May Cry.
Yeah, it's like calling...
the same thing, really.
It's like making another Halloween movie and calling it Halloween.
Exactly. It's like making another Bambi movie and calling it Bambi.
That was below the belt. You didn't have to go there.
I mean, it's the new relevant hip thing to talk about, so...
You didn't
I don't
have
want to talk
go
about
there.
The Lion King 2019 again, so... Naturally, I went to the next
Okay.
best place.
I don't want to talk about Bambi, though.
Why not? It's a good movie, Sam.
You know what I'm talking about.
Oh, the new one that's going to be good?
Yeah, no. It's
Well.
not going to be good.
You try to stop me from seeing it in the cinema.
You won't
here
see
at
it.
college. How are you going to stop me?
Oh, you
How
know,
are you gonna
accidents can happen.
loosen one of the tires on my car?
Just drops the Brisbee house on your local cinema.
No.
What? So yeah, these requels definitely, I think it's fair to say, a big trend. Blade Runner gets a pass because that movie was good, and Mad Max gets a pass because that movie was good.
Yes.
But like the big thing, like these obviously tend to do very well.
Financially speaking, I would say so.
Yeah, I think it definitely comes down to like a nostalgic appeal. But I don't know. Would you say it's like more geared towards the adults who grew up with the thing that was from the 80s or the 90s, or is it like more of like this new generation that kind of knew it but like is getting to experience it again? Because I want to say it's a little bit of both.
Former.
Sorry?
I mean, if you ask me, I think it's primarily driven from the former, and like the latter is just kind of a side effect. I
A
would say,
bonus,
'cause, like,
maybe?
Yes, it's like, okay, like let's take Star Wars. So it's like, okay, we're making The Force Awakens. Clearly, it's like from this, I feel like it's really going to be driven to get a lot of people to go and see like the originals. I think. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, I think Star Wars isn't the best example. I would say it's like there are plenty of worse examples that really just like nostalgia bait and all that.
Let's do
but-
like Jurassic Park. Jurassic World is an example.
Yeah, I would say that's a good example because it's like, oh, it kind of feels very in line with how Jurassic Park works. Like, oh, you get to see this like awesome theme park, and it's like super in detail and all that. But then, oh, the
dinosaur,
big scary dinosaur
breaks
gets
out.
out. Yeah. And it's so, I feel like a lot of it is just like, I don't think when you're gonna like sit down to watch one of these movies, I don't think you're really going in the mind that, okay, like what's this new interesting story you've brought to the table? It's more of just, okay, how have you like tried to modernize the context of the original movie? I
Yeah.
would say.
It's like another way of making like the 5th Ice Age movie or something.
basically.
Yeah, it's like
not what we want.
a different type of like Pixar sequel to a long old thing, I guess. Yeah. It's a weird comparison.
Or you can do, yeah. Or additionally, you can also do your very own requel for your cinematic universe that you started less than a decade ago.
Yep. If you're DC.
Which was... Is it true?
I hope...
Is the real question.
I dearly hope that it is. That would be awesome.
I'm going to expect that it's not, but
what?
I will be... No, okay.
But Michael Keaton's Batman shows up.
No, but it's good. If it does go through, it will be super funny.
It will be hilarious.
So that's the thing. If I expect that it doesn't happen, then I'm right. But if it does happen, then I get the best outcome.
Believe in the funny, Grant. Actually, no, don't. Because if I'm right and you're wrong, it'll be the perfect revenge for me. It'll be the retribution for me not believing that
No Way Home
would have, Maguire and Garfield.
Yeah. I mean, it's weird because Ezra Miller literally went on Reddit and he's like, oh, like, what you guys are saying is not true, but I'm not sure if that's him trying to save face and, like, try to save the movie. So.
We'll see. But, yeah.
I think we will see.
Again,
I'm going to watch it regardless because I just want to see. This has all fascinated me to a point that not many of these movies actually have done so.
But yeah, just to wrap things up with requels, again, there are some like instances of taking the context of the originals and updating them for the modern day.
Actually expanding on it.
Yeah, like again,
Mad Max,
Blade Runner. Yeah.
The good ones that
I just wanted basically pros and cons of like this type of modernization or sequel making.
All right.
Obviously cons, it's lazy if you just want money.
Indeed.
Pros, I think if anything, if you're gonna make something like another Star Wars thing 30 years after the originals, the big thing that like I think this gives you room for is a chance to like expand on like the framework of the original and like the meaning of it without just redoing it. And while also
which is what the good ones do.
Yeah, while also inverting it.
Blade Runner.
I think the ones that like take it to the next level, like telling different stories.
Yes, actually write a story with, like, actually make a sequel, because
right.
I think that's very interesting because it's like now, yeah, I feel like that could be an interesting discussion point because it's like when you think about sequels today, it's like, oh, it's just another movie, but like think about like some actually really good sequels that continue on the movie that was originally made. Like Terminator 2 is always like the gold standard. I feel like when it comes to like a proper sequel, because like Terminator 1, it already has a lot of great stuff established. Sarah Connor's Terminator from the future, and then they already established a bunch of like neat little ideas, like the dogs can sense that it's a Terminator and he starts barking, which then gets like reincorporated into the sequel. But the sequel takes it to the next level because now we get a more deeper dive into the Terminator himself, and we get to learn more about John Connors, the so-called leader of the Resistance, and we get to see Skynet, the actual villain of this whole Terminator story.
But then if you want a bad example, you can look at Terminator Dark Fate, the 5th one, where they like bring back the Terminator and Sarah Connor again, Force Awakens style, years later.
Yeah,
it's just like,
well, I would say
it's just like T2 again.
Yeah, I would say that's kind of the huge problem with like the Rise of Skywalker. I feel like a huge problem with that movie is like, oh, here's Lando Calrissian. Here's Chewbacca getting a medal.
Yep.
Here's like all of this like very... Because that's the thing, like, with in-game it works because they've put in the leg room to where they've earned all of that fan service, and even then the fan service still, in a way, plays a role in the story.
Yeah, it's payoff in the same way that, like, No Way Home had payoff to, like, all the other Spider-Man movies.
Exactly. But then the flip to that is, when you take the Rise of Skywalker, it's like, okay, here's like this thing that we've had no build up to, and it's purely just so you can get this like cheap sense of satisfaction just because we did this thing quote unquote officially. So
yeah, and then Halloween Kills is also really bad about this, where like they just like bring back all of the kids from the other movies who are now adults, but then they all die, and then like Michael Myers is going back to the Myers house for some reason, just for the sake of like including this recognizable house for fan service even though it like devalues what they were going for. It makes no sense. It's like stuff like that, just like missing the points or like missing an opportunity just for the sake of fan service. That's not good.
Yeah. Not a good idea.
Yeah, it's old news, but like, forging ahead,
What
like
you gonna
actually
do?
doing something with the property. That's what we like to see.
Right, like, yeah. Again, Mad Max, Blade Runner. Very good.
Nothing
They
else.
That is kind of sad that there's only 2 good examples.
Oh,
that really come to mind.
Borat.
Oh yeah, I guess in a way you could say that because Borat did a really good job exploring everything with like the climate of 2020.
Yeah,
so.
it's the same satire, but instead of like the 2000s and the war in Iran, it's 2020.
COVID and the election.
Yep. So that's
Good job, Sacha Baron Cohen. You did a good sequel.
Yeah, did it. So yeah, how long do you think this trend's gonna last? You think it's gonna stop? I can't see it stopping.
I don't think it's gonna stop until the next like trend of this nature comes. Honestly,
Maybe it'll be like.
because what I think is gonna be crazy is like, what do you think it's gonna look like for us? Because like, I feel like a lot of this is very derived from like the 80s and a bunch of these big classic like pop culture movies and all that. Like,
Yeah.
how do you think? Because obviously, I think our generation's been defined a lot, pop culture speaking, by like superhero movies and like Marvel and all that. Like,
Yeah.
how do you think that's going to get reincorporated in like 2045?
Maybe
That's the real question.
they'll do the same thing for The Lobster. They'll make a requel of The Lobster. And it'll be like, you gotta come with me. I'm the lobster, and I'm old now, but we gotta save.
We're back at the hotel.
Yeah.
But now the deadline before you get turned into an animal is shortened by half. Oh.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe it'll be like that. Maybe they'll go to all the indie.
A24 is like a shell of who they are, and they just start making like just entertaining like popcorn movies, as people love saying.
Mm-hmm. They're making Everything Everywhere All at Once, which looks really good.
I am actually very excited for that.
Me
movie,
too.
Quite literally.
But we're
It
pretty much out of
very good.
We're pretty much out of things to talk about now at this point since the requel
Yes,
conversation is
except
over.
that the Flash movie might be the new best movie ever made.
It might be.
And will sell
It just might be.
10 trillion tickets. It'll be the highest grossing movie ever made.
What if they did the funny?
And it will
What
be
if
my
they
new
did it?
Letterboxd favorite.
Yes.
If they done do it, I will put it as my Letterboxd favorite for a week.
Okay, I'm gonna hold you to that.
All right.
Letterbox favorite, Grant. Guys,
Letterboxd favorite
Ezra
for a
Miller,
week.
if you're listening to this, make it happen,
not.
please.
Please do. That would be the best course of action.
You would free us all from the Snyderverse.
Yeah, imagine doing it so poorly that we had to literally make a movie to reset
To
all the
erase
mistakes you've
everything.
made. Put it away.
I hate it.
You were wrong.
It has to go. There's no other way around it. It has to go.
It honestly has to at
It
this
has
point.
to go, right?
I think it would be hilarious.
We all know
though,
deep
if, like,
down.
If Warner Brothers clearly has been expressing like this is not what we want to do, but like fans won't listen, so they literally have to like make a movie and says this is quite literally our plan. So
Yeah.
and I don't care. It might be I don't care if it's the worst written movie I've ever seen. It's still pretty funny that we've done this.
But yeah, until then, this has been Private Screening.
Indeed, it has.
Yep, it sure has. Thanks for listening. It Takes Two, in conclusion, is not the game of the year, though it has its
Unfortunately.
moments.
Yeah, because apparently I like Deathloop and Metroid Dread more, but apparently I feel like that's the air quotes wrong opinion. So
There.
and who knows? Psychonauts 2 might also edge out against It Takes Two. So we will see.
I wish you luck, Grant.
Thank you. I gotta play the original first, which I also have.
Oh yeah, it's gonna happen. I believe in you. You're knocking through these like it's nobody's business. You're fast.
I guess so. But school's about to pick up tomorrow for me, so
Same.
yeah.
But we can make it work.
Yeah.
And then
think we will.
wear a mask, stay safe, be on the lookout for new developments. Make sure
Watch
you
a
make
good
some
movie.
time for yourself.
Watch
Oh
a
yeah.
good show.
Dream by
do
night,
something.
wish by day. Love begins this way. Loving starts when open hearts